Okay, Boker Tov over here, and let's begin with this little video as I will explain in a moment. Here we go. You see this? I don't know if it's seen over
In the
here.
spring of the year 70 CE, Titus marches his legions from the coastal plain to Jerusalem. He's boiling with anger. It has been 4 years, and the Roman army has not succeeded in suppressing the stubborn revolt that broke out in Judea. The Jews fight courageously for every piece of land. Even the esteemed commander Vespasian, Titus' father, could not defeat them. Now, after his father's appointment to emperor, it's Titus' turn to manage the campaign. He commands the most powerful war machine in the world, tens of thousands of trained legionnaires equipped with advanced weapons.
Okay, there you have it. So that was just by way of an introduction because we're in the 3 weeks now. And let me turn this around over here. I'm still out of town, so I don't have the usual equipment. To guess where I am. Last week we did the guessing game, but let's see if I just point out the window. Let's see if you could guess where I am. Very different than last week. Okay, I'll let you guess where I am. Just to start off on a little bit of a sort of lighter note. But now let me put this down. Hopefully nothing goes crashing down. Try to set up here a little bit of a hold. Okay, that's the best we can get for today. Sorry if it's a little bit off. Okay, so I already said a bracha because I'm so used to saying a bracha on my coffee before, even though I try to wait. So I'll say the bracha without God's name so that you could still hear the blessing. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam shehakol nihiya bidvaro. Excellent. Okay, so as you saw, the title of the class today was A Temple in Flames, Does God Love Us? So right now, we're in the period of what is known as the 3 weeks. It's called Bein HaMetzorim. The 3 weeks is a period between the breaching of the walls of Jerusalem, which was on the 17th of Tammuz, by Titus, and 3 weeks later, after the Jews fighting heroically to defend Jerusalem, to defend the Holy Temple, 3 weeks later, they burnt the Bet HaMikdash, the Holy Temple, and which was the final destruction of Jerusalem, of Israel, and is the diaspora that we find ourselves today. And since in Judaism it's not about history, although history is important, it's not only about history, it's a lot more than that. It's about reliving and taking the message and reversing the destruction. And we are in a time of destruction. And let me explain that for a moment, and then we'll go into a discussion, which is part of, again, the title of the class. Jerusalem and its destruction. Why is Jerusalem so important? Why is the destruction of the temple so catastrophic? Is because it doesn't just represent a geographic place. It represents the place where God said that it is through Jerusalem and through the Holy Temple that I will be revealed and sensed and felt throughout the entire world. And when we talk about diaspora, and we talk about wars, and we talk about unfortunate cruelty that happens in this world, etc., etc., that's all viewed as a result of the destruction of Jerusalem, because as the Medrash tells us, at that point God said that I will remove my presence, in at least in a revealed way, because nothing can exist without God's energy, but in a revealed way which allows for darkness, allows for spiritual darkness, allows for strife, allows for war. That's why the prophets tell us continuously that when Mashiach will come, when the world will reach the vision of how God wants the world to be, because there is a presence. Let me give you an example. When you're in the presence of, let's say, a person that is of great moral stature, it affects you. It affects your behavior. You don't act in the same petty or selfish way that you would ordinarily, perhaps, because you're in the presence of greatness. So when God's presence is sensed and felt, and God is the ultimate goodness, we would not have all the strife and battles that we have in the world today, whether it's on a more global level, on a local level, on a family level, a business level, partners, whatever it is. Everybody will sense and feel that holiness. So the destruction of the temple is part of the mourning that we have, is because of the state of the diaspora that the world is in. So after that introduction, there's a very strange Talmud that says the following, that when our enemies entered into the Holy of Holies, the Talmud tells us that in the Holy of Holies there was the cherubs, and on the wall there was another image of cherubs, which were the image of a husband and wife. And when God was happy with the Jewish people, or there was an expression of love, these two images would view each other would be miraculously sort of face to face, and there was an expression of affection that was seen on these two images from one another. When God was upset with the Jewish people, they would sort of turn away from each other. And the Talmud tells us that when our enemies entered into the Holy Temple, they saw this image, these two images facing each other in a state of love. And the question is, the temple is being destroyed. God says, as the Medrash relates, that I am removing my presence from the temple because my children have sinned. And as soon as God does that, that is what allows the physical destruction to happen, allows our enemies to enter into the Holy of Holies. So what's going on over here? So Chassidus gives the following explanation, and the Rebbe talks about this, is that the 3 weeks, as I mentioned before, because of what happened, is a period where by Jewish law, even today, and not only even today, but very much so today, is a time of mourning. And there are laws of mourning. You're not supposed to listen to live music. You're not supposed to buy new clothing. You're not supposed to take a haircut. There's a state of national mourning during these 3 weeks. And the question over here is that, why is it, if the destruction is God's way of saying, look, you've sinned, I'm not pleased with you, why would they walk into the temple and see that image? So here we get to a conversation that Chassidus has, Torah has, and that is the following. And I think it relates to the world that we are in today. It's an important discussion. What takes more love? Does it take more love to hug your child? Or does it take more love to discipline your child? And it's not a very complicated question. It takes more deeper love to discipline your child. In fact, King Solomon, there's a famous statement from King Solomon. King Solomon says, Chosech shifto soneh bno. One who withholds the rod, one who withholds the whip, is one who hates his child. So to discipline is an act of love. Now, when you are young and when you're a child and you are being disciplined by your parent, the reaction usually is that you might be very upset with your parent. You might be very disappointed, angry, you'll slam the door, whatever, I hate you, might even come out of your child. Because at the time, what they see is, they only see the patch in Yiddish. They only feel the discipline. They only feel the hurt. They only feel the pain. At that point, they are still too young to appreciate that the reason you are disciplining them, and I'm not talking about a discipline that just comes out of losing your temper. I'm talking about real, proper, thought-out discipline when it's warranted. That when you are disciplining them, they are feeling the pain and they don't see the reward, and they don't see the benefit, and they don't feel the love that's in that discipline. However, when they 20 years later, 30 years later, and they grow up and they become a real mensch, they look back and they say, if not for the fact that my mom or dad disciplined me, which was painful at the time, I would not be who I am today. I would not be the mensch I am today. So you all of a sudden, at that point, the pain is gone, and actually the deeper love is there. So here we find an interesting thing, which answers another question. It says in the prophets, I believe in Isaiah, that Yehavchu Yomim Elu l'sason v'lesimcha, that these days, the 17th of Tammuz, the 3 weeks, Tisha B'Av, the day that marks the destruction of the temple, will actually become holidays. And the question is, why will they be a holiday? Since we understand that post when the temple and Jerusalem and the presence of God will return, it would not anymore be a sad day because it's gone. But why would it be a holiday? Why will it be a day of celebration? And based on the analogy we have just given, we can understand why it actually will not just not be a sad day and be an ordinary day. It'll be a holiday, because the day that God decided to discipline us, the destruction of the temple, so outwardly it's a sad day. It's a very sad day, and it was a tremendous slap that we're feeling 2,000 years later. It was a real patch. But because, as the Torah testifies, we are God's children, so that patch is actually an expression of a deeper love that God has to us and for us or towards us, and it is that deeper love. I mean, to use the analogy, which I've given in the past, is that when you see a child, let's say, misbehaving, if the child is not yours, you turn around, you're in the synagogue, you're in the theater, you're in a museum, and all of a sudden there's a ruckus, and I don't know, some kid knocked something down, whatever it might be. You turn around. If it's your child, you care, you're horrified, and you'll discipline the child. If it's not your child, you just keep on walking. It's not my problem. We are God's kindalach, we are God's children. So the disciplining that happens during this period of time is actually an expression of a deeper love that God, Hashem, has to us. So when this is reversed, meaning when Mashiach comes, I want to share another known expression, which I believe is attributed to the previous Chabad Rebbe. He said like this. He said that we could describe the era, the Messianic era, Mashiach, which is not sometimes people get a little nervous about the Messianic era or Mashiach and so on. It's one of the 13 principles of Jewish faith. It's something the prophets talk about. And it is simply a time where God's ultimate purpose for creation, where there's a world that is a world of goodness, of kindness, that senses continuously its creator, and therefore nobody looks to take from somebody else, nobody looks to have what someone else has. It's a world of goodness and kindness. That's what Mashiach and that world is, and that is the purpose of creation. And our deeds and our good deeds that we do throughout is to bring about that era. Now, throughout the diaspora, there's a lot of pain. But the previous Rebbe said that you could describe the era of Mashiach with one expression. And that expression goes like this: aha! Meaning that at that point in time, we will all of a sudden be like the child who grows up and becomes mature and sees things from a much higher, more mature perspective, which today we cannot comprehend. So that is why, and at that time we will appreciate many of the things that we throughout history, collectively, individually, that we don't understand. then we will understand it, because all of a sudden we'll see things from a far more mature and more godly perspective. What we are working on now is to appreciate and to understand that there is that perspective, to believe that there is that perspective. And I say this again because right now we are, especially in Florida, and the feedback I'm getting, there's a lot of fear regarding the rise of Corona and so on. And I want to reiterate the theme and the point that we've done in the beginning of the Corona epidemic, which is that as the Torah gives us very clear guidelines or guidance that on both ends, on the one hand, following medical advice and doing what needs to be done is of utmost importance. And Torah says you should follow what needs to be done naturally. You can't just rely on miracles. You have to do what it takes. And I hear, without getting too in detail the way I hear, sometimes people saying things about why they don't follow what needs to be done, and it's not the Torah way. The Torah way is you have to do whatever it is by natural means to stay healthy, both for yourself and those around you. At the same time, there's something called bitachon, there's something called faith, there's something called knowing that we will be protected from Hashem. You have to have bitachon, you have to have faith. And the same thing with regards to over here, with regards to the exile and diaspora that we're in. We know that we know and we feel that there's pain, including the corona. That's all part. Illness and disease is all part of the diaspora, of the lack of God's presence. When God revealed Himself to the Jewish people at Mount Sinai, the Torah tells us that all illness was gone. So this is part of the suffering that we don't understand. However, we need to now be comforted by knowing that this is a patch. It's a patch from God, so that we go ahead and in one way or another become better and learn from it and become kinder by helping others who are in need, by realizing there's a far greater power. With all the science and all the military advancement, a little bug is there and wreaks havoc. All this is part of the inner love that God has to make us grow. And that is part of the purpose of the diaspora. However, we know and believe that speedily, in Yirtzeh Hashem, as we say in the Ani Mamin, we all know the song, the famous song, Ani Mamin, Ani Mamin, Ani Mamin, Beyemuna Sheleima, Bevias HaMoshiach, Bevias HaMoshiach, Ani Mamin. And this is a song that Jews in Auschwitz would sing as they were led to the gas chambers and so on, that we believe with complete faith in the coming of Mashiach. Which means, from giving it a little bit of a different, or not different, but another perspective, it means that we believe that ultimately everything that comes from God is good, and we will see that good. We will see that good speedily in our day, and that is part of the deeper message of the 3 weeks. On the one hand, we're still in the Patch period and we have to keep the laws of observance. On the other hand, we are comforted by knowing that it's coming from our Father, from our loving God. It's there for us to grow, for us not to get carried away with materialism, for us not to get assimilated, etc., etc., to remember our purpose, to remember our goal, to remember that it's a patch to help us grow up, and we've already had enough of the patch. I think we all agree. So let us conclude that we've all had plenty of that patch, collectively and individually. It's time for the promise given to us by our prophets to materialize, that already this Tisha B'Av we should be able to feel and see the rebuilding of the Holy Temple, which symbolically represents goodness and kindness and the presence of God being sensed throughout the world, so that it brings out only the good and holiness of all of mankind. May it be so speedily nowadays. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for watching. Everybody should have a fantastic rest of the week.